1984 is a British dystopian drama film based on George Orwell's famous novel of the same name. Written and directed by Michael Radford, it follows the dreaded life of Record Department clerk Winston Smith in Oceania, a country under totalitarian rule and constant surveillance of the thought police. John Hurt stars as the unlikely hero, along with Susanna Hamilton as his forbidden lover Julia of the fiction department, and Richard Burton as the mysterious inner party member O'Brien. Winston's companions include Gregor Fisher as the lively yet dim-witted Parsons, and James Walker as an intellectual Newspeak dictionary editor known as Sim. Cyril Kozak also joins the cast as a suspicious shopkeeper named Mr. Charrington, living in the proletarian area. In terms of overall performance, none of the actors in particular seem to have nailed their roles as effectively as Orwell might have envisioned for the characters, and how I pictured them personally. By close observation, Burton made the greatest attempt in comparison to the others by remaining as faithful to O'Brien's character as possible. In the original, O'Brien is an example of a subtle antagonist who deceives the protagonist by making them believe he supports their motives, when really he is potentially looking to lure them into his trap. This is clearly demonstrated in both media, as O'Brien has been suspecting Winston of thought crime for several years, and had his suspicions proven correct when Winston admits to him that he is against this corrupt society. Meanwhile, O'Brien poses as a Brotherhood member, ostensibly seeking to bring down the party, and briefly teams up with Winston and Julia. Shortly after Winston is arrested, O'Brien reveals he was completely loyal to the party all along, and puts Winston away to be tortured and, quote-unquote, cured of his insanity. The overall sequencing of events throughout the film is lacking when compared to the novel. One of the only episodes faithful to the novel that can be considered powerful and thought-provoking is the torture scene itself. While Winston experiences excruciating pain and agony, an odd connection between him and O'Brien can be witnessed. O'Brien even mentions that Winston's mind is appealing to him, since it resembles his own mind, and he has the ability to infer whatever Winston is thinking. O'Brien's eerily calm yet threatening demeanor, in particular, shapes the atmosphere perfectly. These are the elements that make the scene so hauntingly memorable. It is scary to think that someone watching your every move, whether you are aware of it or not, can know almost exactly what you are thinking just by observing you, with little to no dialogue needed. It becomes that much harder to strategize your concealment. Eventually, Winston is brought to room 101, where he encounters his fear of rats, and is forced to betray Julia in order to express loyalty and affection toward the party and their leader, Big Brother. By this point, his appearance is completely devoid of whatever humanity he had left. This particular moment is well captured. It visually explains how he has turned against everything he had been fighting for, just so that Julia does not get killed, and to prevent anyone else from getting harmed, only to have it prove ineffective in the end for the rest of mankind when no changes to the current state are made. As shown in the film and depicted in the novel, O'Brien is not necessarily frightening in the sense that he is dramatic or monstrous. He suits this trait as a manipulator of the mind. Instances of this are when he explains that reality is only what the party defines it to be, and that there is no such independent thing external of the state. He goes on to say that power gained by the party is not to provide aid for the citizens, but to harness the power for its own benefit. One of his most well-known quotes supports this idea. Always, Winston, at every moment, there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. if you want a picture of the future. Imagine a boot stamping on a human face. Forever. With the exception of an incredibly iconic and intimidating introduction where the employees of the ministry salute Big Brother, as well as the aforementioned horrifying torture scene, the film does not mirror many important aspects of the novel. Multiple key points seem to have been dismissed or altered altogether. When Sim gets vaporized, for example, Winston only discovers this when he is unable to find Sim's name on the chess club list in the novel, whereas in the film, he simply knows with no explanation. This can leave the audience confused if they have not read the novel prior to viewing the film, especially since Sim has a very minor role near the beginning of the film and is not seen again for the rest of it. The audience is not really given an incentive to care about what happens to this character if he does not contribute anything meaningful to the story, which is appalling given that he is supposedly Winston's cohort throughout the majority of the book. Several scenes have been switched around, having no correlation or any sense of fluidity from one to the other, which can once again mislead and ultimately lose the audience. An example of this is Winston's first encounter with Julia. And because they were very public about their actions prior to their secret meeting, viewers may not understand why they had snuck off, particularly due to the fact that little is said to explain their hasty intercourse. Right after this, the scene where Winston goes to repair Mrs. Parsons' sink pipe plays out next. Her son, who is a spy, points at Winston and claims that he is guilty of thought crime, even though he bears no expression neither in his face nor body language. Therefore, the audience will not catch the significance of how Winston's face can give away his thoughts. These scenes are switched in the book and provide actual context with further detail. Those who have read and appreciate Orwell's novel will likely be disappointed while viewing this film. The characters and setting are mostly bland and emotionless, and do not portray the same terror and suspense that are described in the novel. The sets are bleak, which is partially the point, but they do not evoke feelings of despair and total destruction. The same could be said for the actors, especially Hurt, although he at least supplies a sort of dryness to Winston's character quite well. It can be difficult to translate the complexity and symbolism of a text to the big screen, as one must be able to picture such traumatizing events in their mind and try to imagine themselves or others they know in that hypothetical situation. It is not enough to recreate the technicalities and just be descriptive like the books are. It is crucial to present the visual turmoil on screen in order to yield a reaction and even a response to the themes and social commentary from the audience.